Okay, this episode aired after Crusaders of the Lost Mark, but it was leaked before Crusaders of the Lost Mark aired. So imagine how big of a mess up that would have been if the CMC were shown without their costumes on. So after getting a Christmas episode last week, this week we get a Halloween episode. Cause that makes sense. And how convenient is it that the holiday happened to fall on a Saturday? It's pretty obvious that I haven't done jack for Halloween this year, but let's not let that ruin the mood. In Scaremaster, Nightmare Night has come around once again, but Fluttershy isn't too keen on celebrating the holiday. But when she forgets to buy food for Angel, she has to go out and brave the festivities herself. So what's good? Well, I'm glad that this episode avoided the pitfall that a lot of Fluttershy episodes tend to fall in. Even as someone who likes her as a character, I have to admit that while I do like the majority of her episodes, and while they do tackle areas of her shyness from different angles to keep things fresh, they do tend to be at least a little bit formulaic. So far, Season 5 has done a good job of showing that the lessons Fluttershy learned in the first 4 seasons have actually stuck with her. So I was hoping that this episode would avoid the normal Fluttershy episode trap, and for the most part, it does. Usually, when Fluttershy overcomes an aspect of her shyness, she's put into a situation where she has to overcome it. Here, while she did have to leave the house to get food for Angel, she could have just gotten the food and went home, but she made the decision to spend Nightmare Night with her friends and at least give it a try, which does show a little bit of growth on her part, and the episode does a good job of making the process funny to watch. And it confirms that Fluttershy is an otaku. The ending was a nice touch too. Instead of Fluttershy using the whole baby steps cop-out that would set the stage for another reset, she basically says that while she did have a good time in the end, Nightmare Night just isn't her thing. And that works a whole lot better. Even though she doesn't want to do Nightmare Night again, she at least got over the hurdle of being afraid of it and now has closure. She'll be sitting out of it not because of fear, but because she just isn't interested. On the visual side of things, I enjoyed seeing all the different costumes in this episode, including Derpy's rendition of Princess Twilight, and it was good to see Rarity join the festivities this year, because, you know, best unicorn. So what's not so good? Most of what I don't like about the episode is in the very beginning, which is a bit of a relief since that means that it gets out of the way to make room for the good, but still, Fluttershy's initial fear in the beginning of the episode felt a little too exaggerated for me. This habit of locking herself in her cottage was shown in Luna Eclipse, but the way it's shown here makes it look even more extreme. In the former episode, there was a bit of exaggeration, but it was just enough so that it was still funny, and she had Twilight and Luna to play off of. Here, it just felt like her fear was turned a notch too high, and instead of being funny, it's just sad. It's like someone had their hand hovering over the reset button, only to change their mind after giving it some thought. Again, the story does turn itself around for the better pretty quickly once Fluttershy is out the house, but I can't ignore that opening part. Overall, while Scaremasters doesn't quite top the previous Nightmare Night episode, it's still a good story in its own right, and it's one of the better Fluttershy episodes. Next week, we'll be getting a Discord story. What will it be about? Who cares? It's a Discord story. So what did you think of Scaremasters? Let me know in the comments below or hit me up on social media. And consider supporting me on Patreon or commissioning me for art via PayPal. Until next time, keep it sketchy, folks.